Namaskar. Today is June 11th, Friday, and welcome to Daily Global Insights with Sree and Sree. This is episode number 180. Sridharji, it was wonderful meeting you and others at the Big Apple, and I look forward to many more such fruitful meetings, sir.
Good morning, Namaskar. We were happy to have you here for a couple of days, and wonderful to sit down, meet in person, and discuss a number of things that are of shared and common interest. So, very happy to be here on Friday morning. It's a bit cloudy and humid in Manhattan, relative to very nice weather when you were here, but we expect things to improve over the weekend.
Thank you, sir. And we begin in our US news segment. Trump makes it clear that the policies of Biden are, whether it is the border surges or immigration or China or spending or energy, is taking America backwards. He was effusive in his praise for Elise Stefanik, the head of the RNC, and that she is going to be a star in the House and was fighting the policies. Sir, with your permission, I'm just going to put up a picture of our meeting, both of us meeting Elise Stefanik. In our opinion, she's going to go places. At a very young age, she has become the RNC chair. So, your thoughts?
Well, I think it was a good meet. It was brief. Trump was as Trump was very sharp, very focused, and made his remarks. This was basically an event to celebrate Elise Stefanik's recent victory over being nominated, replacing Liz Cheney in the House. She was quite sharp, and she hit on the policies that's really taking United States, in her view, backwards, which is effectively reflective of the Republican approach. It's very clear that she has grasp of the issues, and she's able to communicate those issues to a group of people who are present. And also the post-event meeting, where we spent a little bit of time, she was inquisitive about various things that is shaping United States. So it was good that she was receptive to feedback, and we look forward to talking to her more.
Thank you, sir. And in other news, migrant encounters rise above 190,000 as the border crisis deepens in May. We should also mention that Kamala Harris got into a controversy in one of the interviews that was given on a mainstream media channel, where she was asked why she has not visited the border, and she said, "So what? I have not gone to Europe either." Very flippant remark, very unfortunate, not becoming of a vice president. My thoughts, sir. Your thoughts?
My thoughts on the surges that is going on, contrary to the view that the surges have not stopped, there has been persistent and consistent attempts to cross. There's also been illegal attempts. And I think this was another area where Trump talked about the number of people who pose security risk both to the nation and to the communities, because they're just being allowed to come in and put in right in the middle of the communities, into the various existing communities within the country. So the encounters, the rise of the encounters, is only a reflection and reinforcement of what we have been speaking about. Is this whole surge and illegal, or whatever you want to call the migration, the people coming in, the naming is, if you talk to Democrats, they call it as the aspiring migrants or migrants. If you talk to Republicans, they're called as the illegals who are attempting to cross the border. Whichever way you want to calibrate the definition, the truth is that this has become one of the biggest issues. And I don't know whether people may be cognizant or aware that this has created a problem in terms of this, in conjunction with the dole-outs, is creating a problem where people are not willing to come to work. On one side, they're saying, "Oh no, these people are going to come into the workforce. Suppose I go and work, I get unemployed, then I'm not going to get the benefits. So let me sit back and take my dole." Or take my unemployment benefit. So I think this is going to create some other challenges within the ecosystem as well.
And I might add a little bit to what Sridhar just said, that I was meeting Trump for the first time, President Trump for the first time, and he looked like he was itching for a fight. He was full of energy and enthusiasm, very, very eloquent. Just a few minutes that he spent talking about Elise and her fight for getting the RNC chairmanship. But the point I'm trying to make here is that, yeah, now some of you are going to say, oh, there, aha, now you guys have come out. Now you are for Republicans. No, we're not. We have also given out inquiries to people across the aisle, to Democrats. After all, Kamala Harris is from my neck of the woods, and I've tried desperately, even before she had become a VP candidate, even before she had run for president, I tried to give her a platform, but she politely refused. But we will continue to do that, and we will continue to seek anybody from the Democrats who would like to come share their thoughts on this channel. By the way, this is just the beginning. You're going to see a lot of heavyweights coming on our channel, and stay tuned. So, sir, with your permission, let's move on to the next one. Biden is on a visit of Britain, attending the G7 conference. Biden and British PM Boris Johnson huddled on travel restrictions, security, and vaccines. We also saw that Biden has announced something similar to what Modi ji had done, that he is going to be making 500 million vaccines available for 92 countries, the same 92 countries that India also sent. I don't know if it's the same or not. You can correct me, sir, on the actual data. But it's also important to note that Narendra Modi, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, would be attending this via video conferencing. So what do you think is happening? I mean, now everybody is just camped in Cornwall.
Well, everybody is camped in Cornwall, and we touched on this topic in the last DGI. He was making his visit to via Belgium. He was supposed to meet and address, which he did, of the NATO. Then he met the EU representatives. Then he went to UK. Had the bilateral huddle with Boris Johnson. There are three things that concern them. One is obviously the vaccines. They want to counter the diplomacy of China with a US-led or with a Quad-led diplomacy. If you all recall, the Vice President Kamala Harris had bilateral discussions or a discussion with Mr. Modi ji around the vaccines, and a whole slew of vaccine distributions came up as part of the discussions. Even in London, where they're going to meet and discuss at the G7, this would be one of the topics. On the bilateral side, there's an attempt to open Britain for lift the travel restrictions. Britain is one of the topmost nations in terms of vaccinating its people, and they're pretty much ready to receive and open the doors to international visitors, most notably United States. Security here we are talking about is the Indo-Pacific, South China Sea security. We are also talking about the security in the across the pond, as we say here, but also on the waters of the Baltic Sea, which is notably to deal with the Russians. So the NATO is revived, and Britain is now out of Euro, but it is very much an integral part of the NATO. So I think that security issues surround that. We're glad that Modi ji, you brought the Modi ji point up, is attending or Mr. Modi is attending the Cornwall event, along with, it's an outreach, so he's not the only one. There's going to be Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison. There is Moon Jae-in from South Korea, and then the South African Prime Minister or President will also be at the meet. So this is good that they're all part of it.
And back home, Ilhan Omar's anti-Israel, anti-US rhetoric opens rift in the House Democratic Caucus. This was long time coming. This lady can't control her statements, and I'm glad to note that her own party people are now standing up and speaking against her. It was not just a fact that we at PGurus were pointing out some of these statements. Her as well as Rashida Tlaib, very, very intemperate remarks sometimes. Sir, your thoughts, where do you think this is headed? Do you think that the Iron Lady now, because she's not able to control some other ladies, Nancy Pelosi is going to put a kibosh on Ilhan Omar?
What has come out is Nancy Pelosi is supporting the Democratic Jews against the views of Ilhan Omar. Israel is a long-term ally of United States. It doesn't matter whether you are a Democrat or whether you are a Republican. That's one common theme, was the support for Israel. Now, for Ilhan to come out and make such irrational statement, without understanding the nuances is a reflection of her own personal mind rather than the constituents that she's representing, not that she's representing the broad view of the US people or US population. So this is not going down well, and it is creating problems within the party. I think she did not stop there. You have seen Republicans being called racist, Americans being called racist. Now Ilhan has gone one step further. Besides branding Israel, she's even gone on to say that it should be combined. It should be called something equivalent to Taliban or terrorists and so on and so forth. So I'm most unwarranted by a U.S. representative, and it's amazing that we are living to witness these types of things coming out of the soil of United States.
Unasked for piece of advice for Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, have a checklist. Okay, so much funding, then you tell them, I will talk about you or in support of you 2 times. And after that, you're done. Don't take any more commitments. Okay, so you have got funding from some dubious institutions. Fine, you already made your statements. Just move on. You have been elected to represent that particular district. There are other people other than those who voted for you. Keep that in mind. And she's not alone, sir. These days, people are so partisan that it begs sometimes it begs your imagination. So how low some of these politicians who got elected recently are stooping. This is a different country, different politician. We'll come to that in a short while, but let's move on. Infrastructure plan. A bipartisan team of Democrats and Republicans reach a deal without increasing taxes, and this needs ratification from other members. This is a very significant development, in my opinion, that they are trying to reach a deal, or they have reached a deal without increasing taxes. That is the most important thing as the country comes out of this pandemic, sir.
Indeed. It's very laudable that they have a self-funding scheme, which is to pay back. I would not use the word with no taxes. Notwithstanding the fact the political spin is around no taxes, there has to be, you're going to see, not in corporate taxes, you may not see the increase from 20% or 21% to 28%. You may begin to see in wealth tax and estate tax and personal taxes, etc., etc. So I think the details to be awaited. But what's personally disconcerting is we started with about 564 billion. Then we made our way up to 750 billion. Then we made our way to 1 trillion. Now it looks like we have made our way to 1.25 trillion plus in this negotiated consensus that is emerging between these 10 bipartisan senators or representatives from Republicans and the House side. Now, it's only a matter of time because Biden came down from 2.25 to 1.75. When you actually look at the infrastructure needs, which we discussed, it's less than 500 billion. So padding up with all this money by way of debt doesn't augur well for the overall balance sheet. We will come to the overall balance sheet. There are early numbers that are coming out as to what the 2022 balance sheet would look like. And we will report those numbers, in one of the shows or have a special discussion around it. But, it doesn't, these numbers are sinking the country more and more into debt.
Remember, viewers, numbers are our forte. When somebody waddles into our territory, believe me, when I say this thing, we are going to subject it to the utmost scrutiny. Sir, Keystone XL pipeline has been cancelled after the Biden order. This is the most unfortunate thing. This again is, to me, reeks of checklist. Okay, I got so much funding for election. Yes, do this thing. Because US was in my opinion, sir, and I could be wrong, was a safety valve that made sure that the crude prices did not go out of control because of the OPEC machinations. But now, with Keystone being shut down, does US still have that flexibility? Your thoughts?
The whole attempt of this new, green peace accord or green energy policy, environmental protection is all about moving from fossil fuels into alternate energy. And I think it remains to be seen whether the transition plan will be implemented. If you ask any corporate exec or if you ask a management theory guru, he will tell you that whenever you are doing a transformation, you need to have a gradual as well as progressive and methodical transformation so that you go from current state to the end state. The way the Biden administration is going about, it's not following this what we call graceful migration. It is going from an abrupt destruction to the target end state, which is always difficult to implement. So there's going to be significant consequences flowing both on the revenue side as well as on the jobs front by constantly now shutting down, various existing projects and new projects plus projects that were approved have all been shunned by the Biden administration. Keystone is just one example and a significant example.
And Senator Blackburn says that Fauci chose big tech and China over the United States for the mess we are in. Again, this has been played down. This has been the fact for a long time. March 2020, I can repeat, Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai and I had a hangout where we mentioned that there is a big game plan about trying to bring in vaccines in the as a new money source for pharma, big pharma, and that Fauci was representing these pharma interests. That video got taken down by YouTube. I'm not done fighting yet. We'll keep you posted on that. But sir, this again shows how much power some people have over controlling the narrative in this world.
Well, I think that is unfortunately the what we live in a world of active managed mainstream media, or activist managed mainstream media, or NGO funded mainstream media. So you're going to have only biased, prejudiced, suppressed information, and the information being tickled out. Judicial Watch is actually has filed a suit against both DHS as well as DNI on the suppression of information that has taken place around the COVID. And also there's another litigation that is likely to come up, which is whether the social platforms or tech platforms like Facebook collaborated in suppressing the information. If you recall, anything that was propped up around COVID, it was being used, the fact checkers were being used and the information were being suppressed. So it's very sad, but that's unfortunately the world that we live in. How we navigate that world is an interesting paradigm. So to some extent, in this channel, part of DGI, we are covering some of this issue to bring about what we hear and what we see and what we can analyze based on the facts that we know.
And now let's take a look at India news. India's agri exports grew by 17.34% to $41.25 billion, and the momentum is expected to be sustained in fiscal year 22. Add to this the fact that Israel is helping India to take the agriculture to the next generational leap. This could mean a significant bounce in India's agriculture export capability, sir.
Indeed. Food is one of the food, water, and clean air are the three main demands that is being placed on the world as we move forward. So food is definitely one of the biggest areas that India can contribute and meet the needs of the hungry. When you take a look at, it's very, very what you call positive sign that there is a growth of about 17 and a half, close to 17.5%, and the export is around $41 billion. So clearly, this is an area where India can put its best efforts and make it into $100 billion bilateral or $100 billion exports. And there's a captive audience of more than 10 to 12 countries. Those countries include United States, China, Kuwait, UAE, Malaysia, Iran. So you can name a large number of nations are importing food from India. And India has only scratched the surface. These are effectively non-basmati rice, cereal, maize, millets, and other food products. Once the PLI program of Mr. Modi is implemented and more participants come in and the ecosystem is developed, there's nothing that prevents other types of products like fruits and vegetables and other types of products to be packaged and exported, quarantined, packaged and exported, driving the opportunity even for the farmers, because one of the things is about these farmer reforms is how best you can now how best to attract a price which is greater than the MSP that I think the government offers. So I think this development augurs quite well for India.
And in other news, India Kuwait relations is a great story to be told for generations, says Kuwaiti ambassador. Sir, I have heard this from many people that Indian expatriate workforce in especially the Gulf countries is one of the best because they are apolitical, they don't choose sides, they come in, put in their hard work, and they go back. I mean, this kind of praise is over. I mean, it's about time we started hearing from the contributions of the Indian workforce that has been serving the Middle East for many years now, sir.
So there's almost a surgical focus by the Indian administration, led by both Minister for External Affairs and Minister for Trade, Commerce. Believe it or not, around 2015-16, India's bilateral trade with Kuwait was around $5 billion. 2015-16. Today, it has grown to about $12 billion. It's doubled just in one quarter, which is from October to 2 quarters, October to March. I am told the numbers is $5.7 billion bilateral trade. India is a net importer rather than India is a net exporter. India's critical energy needs is supplied by Kuwait. Kuwait also is a great opportunity for them to develop their West Asia security strategy. Kuwait is a port, the West Asia security strategy. So what you're seeing here is that the bilateral relationship being augmented to attract both investments from Kuwait. Kuwait has got significant amount of investments significant investments from via the sovereign fund. So India is trying to attract some of the sovereign fund money into India for various projects. So I think this as you rightly said, the point that you made about several technocrats who make up the Kuwaiti ecosystem are of Indian origin. They basically power the economic activity within Kuwait. So that also is a very positive factor in terms of human relations. So the reason we are pointing out is that there is a euphoric movement that is being celebrated to effectively say we are here and we want to do more business. I am sure there's also a competitive element amongst the what we call GCC countries. India did a deal with Oman, so Kuwait is ready to step up.
And India says to World Trade Organization members, we have no time to lose and conclude the patent waiver discussions by July end. This is so that India can ramp up its vaccine production. It's a very important point. I hope that India successfully concludes this and moves on to become the vaccine supplier of the world. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, I think the United States was one of the countries holding up. United States, both House and Senate, amended the regulations to be supportive of this, what they call TRIPS, trade restricted intellectual property rights. So this will augur well once WTO wraps it up in July 2021 time scale. This is what both South Africa and India are asking for to ramp up. South Africa could be the beacon for the African continent before this virus begins to spread further.
And setting aside China, India becomes the first country to cross 250 million vaccine doses. This is a very impressive milestone. Sir, with your permission, shall I put up the second graphic?
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go, sir. You take it away, sir. I'm putting up the graphic.
Well, I think the most notable, there are two graphs, I think, or one graph. Is the one? Is it the one which is the vaccines? The vaccine trajectory shows. Yeah. India has crossed United States.
That's exactly
in
right.
Number of vaccines. India has crossed United States number of vaccines, and this is notwithstanding the fact that it is still on a relative scale. You're talking about 1.4 billion people versus 330 million people in United States. But India is right up there in terms of the number of doses. There's been a lot of criticism around the vaccination program and the number of vaccines. 250 million doses of vaccines is an amazing number notwithstanding the fact all the criticism that has been levied against India. The second point that I'd like to add is that now there's at least about 10 different companies besides the two big names, Covishield and Covaxin. And then, of course, you have Sputnik. They're all coming into the marketplace in India, and each creating, 10, 20 million annual vaccines. And the Covaxin and Covishield itself is going to be about 200 million per month, or 170 to 200 million per month. That's the revised numbers. So India is very much on track to hit the 1 billion doses sometime this year. Indian government has also indicated that they would complete the vaccinations for all the needy. I mean, not the entire country. I don't know whether this is different age groups. The child issue is still being discussed and debated, but the entire country will be vaccinated by end of the year. Even if they slip by 1 quarter, it's still a very good number that they would have achieved. And billion vaccines is quite a lot in a short span of time.
And Nepal's foreign minister seeks India's support for COVID vaccines. This is a very significant development because we saw that Nepal started tilting away from China and towards India again in the last week. And I think that steps are now becoming more and more accelerated. Nepal has always been a younger brother kind of a relationship with India. I think this augurs well. Your thoughts, sir?
It augurs well. India has supplied close to 2.1 million vaccines, and they need more. And the Nepali Prime Minister and the Nepali Foreign Minister have indicated that, we look forward to India supporting us, and we are extremely thankful. Even China has supported us. We are thankful, but India is our bigger brother. So hence. It augurs well if we can come together and make sure that our needs are met as well by India. So there seems to be a rapprochement and much more proactive policy rather than some of the rhetoric that we saw not too far ago.
And India's active cases dropped to 1.168 million, with the total cases at 29.18 million and deaths at 359,676. These are very impressive numbers. And I'm also hearing about the effectiveness of a new drug, sir. Can you spread a little bit of light on that also? Ivermectin, I think?
It is. It has been field tested, and its efficacy ratio appears to be very good. It combats the variants. It can also be used, I think, based on the initial trials for the children. And it follows a different pattern of science or pathological or virological formula. So as more and more research comes out, we have reported in DGI, as more and more research comes out, we're going to see vaccines and methodologies and formulations vastly different from what we saw in the first wave, and probably even in the second wave as we get into the third wave and fourth wave, which is, people can ask me, is there a third wave? Yeah, there is a third wave. Is there going to be a fourth wave? Yeah, there is going to be a fourth wave. Is this going to stay with us? Yes, this is going to stay with us because we are already talking about booster doses and integrating the traditional virus with COVID, etc., etc. So this has a significant mutational element to it. We don't know what we don't know. So certain people seem to know what they know. And the fact that, more and more news has come out in the past 18 months or so is a reflection that they may be saying the right thing by saying that this is going to be here and we need to combat it as part of a normal routine.
And in part of global news, US-Taiwan officials discuss trade and plan meeting in coming weeks. US Indo-Pacific commander requests more funding to contain China. Japan and Australia join forces to tackle China's economic bullying. So perhaps you can just combine all the observations into one point because we're kind of racking up our time today. Go ahead, sir.
Right. Okay. Taiwan is Taiwan, so I think they want to legitimize Taiwan. Taiwan is going to be also in the G7 summit. They're going to include a word on Taiwan. Japan has called Taiwan as a country, which has ruffled the feathers of the Chinese. The Indo-Pacific commander says that United States has lagged on the infrastructure that is warranted to combat China. So therefore, he's asking for more money. Recall in the Trump budget, there was a plan to enhance the security and spend in the Indo-Pacific as well as South China Sea. Japan and Australia are saying you're not going to be curtailing imports and exports. You're not going to levy further duties on the imports and put subsidies on the exports. So we'll know how to tackle this. So should there be a trade embargo coming from China, then both Australia and Japan are saying we are partners. We have had bilateral trade for long years, so we'll combat it.
And US announces a $3 million reward for information on attack of Iraqi airport, and 2 drones were intercepted at the Ain al-Assad airbase amid undeclared nuclear activity. Iran called IAEA report unproductive. So a lot of things happening in Iran and Iraq. There was an attack, and now US has announced a reward for that. And there seems to be a suspicion that it was a drone carrying nuclear material. Is my reading correct?
No, I think there are 2 different pieces of news, but they may be interconnected. Iran may be involved. So there was a drone attack. 2 drones, were intercepted and destroyed. They caused no casualty. Usually, whenever you have in the Iraqi U.S. airbase area an attack, the natural suspicion is Iran. We're not talking about anyone else. The natural suspicion is Iran. While this is going on, Iran has also, gone public by saying, despite a lot of activity that has been witnessed and reported by IAEA, the report that has come out of this is being critiqued by Iran and saying these types of reports by IAEA is counterproductive. So you can see that they are putting what we call as a soft and hard pressure. Soft pressure is through media, and the hard pressure is through some of these issues that are popping up, be it in Israel, be it in Iraq, be it in Yemen, be it in other places, even in the, what you call as the Persian Gulf, the seas. So you have maritime issues. If you recall, we talked about a refinery fire. We also talked about one of the big naval ships going down of Iran in the Persian Gulf, and was not known. So whether they were no information is available. So the objective is to combine. Iran seems to be at the epicenter of these various activities, and something which is making daily headlines around the world.
After NATO, Russia begins military exercises in Pacific. NATO exercises concluded on June 3rd. Russian military exercise involves submarines, missile cruisers, anti-submarine warships, and MiG-21 interceptors. A lot of stuff going on with Russia, sir.
Russia is going to go, toe for toe, toe for toe, and activity to activity. It is going to combat, and you can see the impressive setup. I don't need to expand further than what we have communicated. It is quite elaborate. They did the same in the Black Sea. Now they're doing the same in the Pacific.
And as Sridharji mentioned, we have entered a 3rd wave of corona activity, as South Africa now confirms that there is a 3rd wave of corona in effect in South Africa. Sir, with your permission, shall we take a look at markets now?
Sure.
And in markets information, inflation jumps to the highest level in 30 years. The US 10-year drops to 1.469% and the 30-year to 2.16%. So the inflation is because of people having a lot of expendable money. That's my read, sir? What are your thoughts?
I don't want to second guess, but let me give you my view. My view is there's a recalibration of prices by virtue of limited activity. So in other words, your people are buying. They want to sell more to few people or fewer people, who are coming to the who are buying either by online or who are buying by coming to the shops where the shops are open. There's a lot of lockdowns and shutdowns. Labor is not available. So we have seen increase in food prices, quite dramatic increases in food prices. We have seen increase in the fuel prices. typically these two things don't get added to what you call as the core inflation. But the inflation is now at 5%. On OECD, the average inflation is around 3.7%. But we are holding the interest rates. This is one of the amazing stories. Inflation going upward, interest rates going downward. So, if I have to give, if you can afford, if you can, I mean, 2.15% in the United States, 30 years is a tremendous. There's less than 70 basis points difference between a 10-year rate and a 30-year rate. I don't want to send triggers to our viewers in terms of what some of the things that they can do when you have this type of this type of a narrow gap between a 10-year and a 30-year rate. But if you know how to manage money and how to use this capital, then this is the best time. The Fed and the Treasury feel that this aberration in interest rates is temporary and it will eventually come down. That's one of the reasons why the rates are actually, as came into the program, the rates further dipped to about 1.44% on the 10-year, as I say, unheard of.
And oil rises above $70 with crude settling at 70.12 and Brent at 72.41. Markets, despite all this, hit record, and S&P is at 4239, Dow at 34,466, and Nasdaq at 14,920. And here is an interesting thing that I have an opinion to offer on this, and Sridharji, please feel free to differ with me. Bitcoin and crypto may soon be coming to your 401k plan. I think there is a speed bump that people may have not noticed. These are my thoughts, of course, and Sridharji is the domain expert and he can correct me if he thinks that I am wrong. What happened was, in the colonial extortion, about 67% of the Bitcoins were recovered by the FBI. So the FBI found a way to penetrate into the blockchain market, to in fact locate where they had gone, and that is the way that you can actually get it. And what the FBI did was a very interesting trick. I read the details of it. I'll just spare you the details, but essentially the FBI managed to post itself as the legal recipient of the Bitcoin, and therefore they could essentially intercept and get back 67%. Right, it's a fraction, which is very interesting, 67.5 or something like that of the Bitcoins that were used to pay the ransomware. Now, this to me rings a lot of alarm bells, sir, which means that it is not as impenetrable as it was made out to be.
No, I think we discussed this in one of our crypto offsites. You're going to have little bumps on the road when any legal tender, or crypto is not a legal tender in the United States. It is a legal tender in a very small country called El Salvador. And it'll soon be legal tender. At least another 2-3 countries may announce very soon. While the recovery of the crypto, which was paid as a ransom, you alluded to certain points, and how location of infrastructure of the crypto gives the governments the access to intervene. What happens in circumstances when infrastructure is outside your jurisdiction poses an interesting question to the crypto developers. Whether the U.S. infrastructure should be in, let us say, Russia, whether Russia's infrastructure should be in Singapore. I don't know what happens in those circumstances. But setting aside the concept of anonymity, as well as the recoverability of any attempts made to pay ransom and other types of things by crypto, the point what is coming out is that there is a demand that is growing from people. It is the demand that makes the difference in terms of being offered as a solution by mainstream institutions. We have already reported soon crypto will be available in your branches. You go to your branch and you say, I want to buy Ethereum, I want to buy Bitcoin, I want to buy Dogecoin. you will be able to pay cash and you'll be able to get the coin. Just as you go to MGM Studios, you go to any of the Bellagio, and you can give cash and you'll get the chips and you gamble, right? So therefore, this is coming, okay? And so now the retirement plans are saying, well, if there is an opportunity to make a gain, let me say, okay, I'll allow you to access and make 1%, 2%, 3% allocation. It won't sink you, but at least you have an opportunity to extend. If you are somebody like a maverick, you can do 70% allocation and make a tons of money. And mind you, if Janet says we're going to be making them compliant and making them pay tax, best way is to put money in your 401k, defer the tax, and let's see what happens. If somebody like Trump comes back and your 401k drawdowns can have tax benefit when you draw down. When you have Mr. Biden like person coming back, you're done. So it to me is more the tax consequence of appreciated gains or realized gains when you do the drawdown is going to be problematic. This technology is going to be refined. The technology is going to be embraced. And, we have been attempting to do this for more than 40, 50 years, alternate to cash. Okay. So we have tried smart cards, prepaid. We have tried different methods, especially the smart cards didn't take off. But crypto seems to have a legs by virtue of the market cap that it has achieved and by virtue of a large number of people who are trying to get behind this. Anyway, that's my spill in response to your question, Sree. So as to why this is, despite speed bumps, we'll get along.
Yes, indeed. And that brings us to a close on today's segment. We'll be back again bright and early next Monday morning. And Sridharji, it's it's a great experience meeting you and many of the other people during my trip to New York. And we're going to be doing more things in the future. Stay tuned. Sridharji has come on board now full time. He's going to be helping us out with a lot of the back-end programming stuff. In fact, he might be also hosting himself some programs. He has been doing it as a guest host. You can see more of his incisive questioning in the episodes to come. Stay tuned. Do support us. Subscribe to us. Join our membership methods. And please pass the word along. Thank you very much. Namaskar, sir.
Thank you. Namaskar. Have a good week.